everybody, and welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. What's going on? I hope Week 13 was awesome for you. Still have a couple of games left, but we are here to recap the Sunday. And you know what? The Friday action, too. That game deserves some commentary, so we'll get to that. Adam Azer, Heath Cummings, Jamey Eisenberg. All right. How we doing, guys? Feeling good?
How's your trip home?
Trip home was good. I told the story on the show this morning. I watched Lord of the Rings, but the flight ended about anywhere from 8 seconds to 8 minutes before the end of the movie. So I have to figure out. It's on Max apparently, so we'll watch that. And now I'm a Lord of the Rings guy, so that was unexpected part of the trip. But everything was good, and I missed you guys on Friday. I'm glad to be back. Let's get to it with our big news. Start with that. Trevor Lawrence. I'm sure you've all seen the hit. People are acting like it was the dirtiest hit in the history of football. It was bad. But he left with a concussion and looked like a bad, he had that reaction that you hate to see. So it could be, I'm not going to speculate, but it's a concussion for Trevor Lawrence.
I would be surprised if he plays again this year, just from where they're at and what the situation was going into the game the last couple of weeks for him about, conversation shutting it down. Like, why risk it at this point?
J.K. Dobbins on IR, Austin Eckler on IR. James Conner signed a 2-year contract extension. Then he left with a wrist injury, but he did come back. So I think we dodged the bullet there with James Conner. Roshan Johnson left with a concussion on Thursday. Bucky Irving gave us a little scary, left with a hip injury, but he came back, and he had an amazing game. And then Rachaad White basically sealed it with a long run in overtime, which I did not get to see because it wasn't on TV. It went off red zone, so I was disappointed in that. CeeDee Lamb expected to play next week. He re-aggravated his shoulder on Thursday. Rashad Bateman left with a knee injury. They going into their bye, but Bateman has a knee injury. Ladd McConkey left in the fourth quarter. We'll know more about that injury tomorrow on Monday. We'll have Beyond the Box Score. Hopefully we'll have something for you by then. And Taysom Hill left with what looked like a pretty rough knee injury in the fourth quarter. They're at the Giants next week. And Dallas Goedert left with a knee injury. They are at the resurgent Carolina Panthers next week. So that's the big news that we're tracking here. Let's go to our biggest winner, Heath Cummings. Who's our biggest winner of Week 13?
Well, I think it's got to be Bucky Irving. We had the breakout 2 weeks ago, but there was still just 1 week of him dominating targets like that. And Rachaad White had the same number of rush attempts, and there were reasons to have doubts. And after this performance where he even left the game with an injury for a short period and just thoroughly dominated both his own running backs in this backfield and the Carolina Panthers. And he legitimately looks like, I saw somebody said in the chat, he's not just a winner this week, he's a league winner. And that is exactly what it looks like.
He's now scored more than 15 PPR fantasy points in 6 of his last 7 games. And the only time he didn't was at Kansas City, which is the toughest matchup. So you got the Raiders next week. He's a start rest of the way. Bucky Irving, 67% started. Jamey, how about the biggest loser today?
I'll just put the point the finger at myself with Baker Mayfield at the start of the week. Same game, thought he would do much better against Carolina. Obviously did not, got banged up in the game, but that's no excuse. He was not throwing the ball well before that. A couple of interceptions that were ugly. And so, we might have a Baker Mayfield problem, back-to-back weeks with under 20 fantasy points. He is locked in on Mike Evans, which is a good and bad thing because it seems like the Panthers were sitting on a few of those routes and Cade Otton has disappeared. There's nobody else stepping up really to help him aside from the running backs on occasion. But we may have an issue with Baker Mayfield as a must-start quarterback when everybody's playing again.
Very frustrating. All right, Bucky Irving, the biggest winner. Mayfield, the biggest loser.
If you recall, I should have stuck with my gut, and I said I was back and forth Bucky Irving and Baker Mayfield. Didn't have enough running backs to use in the column. We talked about this, I think, on Friday. On Thursday. When our Thursday show was Wednesday. Yeah. I should have went with Bucky Irving.
Just to the Mike Evans point, they said on the broadcast that Baker told them during the week that Mike Evans needs 99.5 yards per game to get to 1,000. So 6 games out, Baker Mayfield already knew what the number was. He got 118 in this game thanks to overtime. So he will need a little bit less than that moving forward.
All right, everybody, if you got a second, go to this URL real quick, shop.cbssports.com/fantasy, shop.cbssports.com/fantasy. This is a really cool place with some fantasy football gear. So if you want to get, something for your league champion or you want to talk trash to someone in your league, now's the perfect time. The holiday season's here. And whatever you want, from whether you're celebrating or teasing the Biggest Loser, go to the Fantasy Football Today fan shop, our new fan shop powered by ShopSense. It has everything you need, from trophies to t-shirts. We've got the gear to make your league unforgettable. But that's not all. If you need a gift for the ultimate fan or looking to upgrade your fan cave, we've got you covered with everything from sports memorabilia to game day decor. Perfect for the holiday season. Visit the shop now and get everything you need to make this season legendary. You can use the link in the episode description or scan the QR code on your screen to shop right now. Pretty cool stuff. And that you can buy things there. We're going to buy things right here. Let's do a little buy or sell. The first one comes from Adam Plank. He says, buy or sell Marvin Harrison Jr. This is an interesting one. It's coming off a good game for him. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't need to be started for the rest of the season. He just had 12 targets, which is surprising. 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown at Minnesota. He gets Seattle next week, then New England, then at Carolina. So buy or sell, Marvin Harrison Jr. does not need to be started for the rest of the season.
So.
I kind of see his point. He only had 5 catches on 12 targets. He catches about half his targets. He only had 60 yards.
You can up the coach speak index for Gannon, because he said before the game that the passing offense was going to run through Marvin Harrison. Now, Trey McBride still had 12 targets also. Caught them all, by the way, for 20 fantasy points without a touchdown again. But like, we saw the increase in targets. The schedule's fantastic. We're going to start Marvin Harrison, especially next week.
Seattle, I feel like they're getting a lot better.
Well, there's 6 teams on a bye.
Oh, there are, yeah. That's true.
You're starting him next week mostly by default. I think once we see what comes out of this game. But if you say he's going to get this many opportunities weekly, you're starting him. I was just going to ask, when you brought up Bucky Irving as a league winner, could you comfortably start an all-rookie team rest of way?
Yeah. Oh, who's that second rookie running back, though? Because Jaden Daniels. Tracy. Splitting carries last week, but okay.
Harrison, Neighbors, and Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't love that. I don't think we'd win with that.
We have Daniels and Nix if it's super flex.
Oh, now it's super flex. Ooh, well, you're just
Brock Bowers. You got the best.
Bowers. I like Bowers.
It's a pretty good team.
I don't think we can win with those receivers. I don't like. Am I the only one that's seen Malik Neighbors be horrible for like?
He scored 15 fantasy points. Why do you like every week he scores between 11 and 15 fantasy points, and you act like he's the worst wide receiver in fantasy?
Going into the Dallas game, he was wide receiver 33 per game
with no touchdown. That's pretty good.
No, he doesn't score touchdowns. They're the worst team in football.
Oh yeah, Ladd. We got Ladd too.
Get Neighbors out of there. Well, McConkey's hurt though, so we got.
Oh, you got 2 receivers. You got 3 receivers and a flex. So we got all 4 of those guys.
All right. I don't think we'd win. Buy or sell from Jason.
We win easily.
Buy or sell from Jason. DK Metcalf is a number 3 receiver, and Russell Wilson is a top 12 quarterback.
I do buy Metcalf as a number 3 receiver when we are back to every team playing. And I don't buy Russ as a top 12 quarterback unless he's playing the Bengals every week. That's just an absolutely atrocious defense. Yeah, and I wish I would have known Logan Wilson was not playing, because I would not have said Najee Harris is sit.
Sell.
Yeah, Metcalf, I think he's getting a little unlucky. I feel like he drew at least 1 pass interference penalty. He's getting these end zone targets. How concerned are you? And he's got Arizona next week, which is never good for him. And then Green Bay, Minnesota at Chicago to finish things out. But 4 catches for 66 yards on 9 targets at the Jets. So that's 70 yards, 59 yards, 66 yards in 3 straight games with no touchdowns.
I don't think he's healthy. He got banged up a little bit in this game too, it seemed like.
I'm probably just going to keep starting him.
I think everybody's still starting him, but 2 receiver leagues, like you could probably find some guys that are in better standing than him. His own teammate is better than him right now.
All right, let's take a break and come back and talk about Ken Walker. If you want to see my blood boil, we'll talk about Ken Walker when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Buy or sell continues here with Dr. Goldfish, MD. I wouldn't recommend him. Kenneth Walker is matchup dependent at best. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Okay, this is now 5 straight games with fewer than 14 PPR fantasy points. Usually, though, pretty close to 14. I mean, 3 straight games with more than 13, less than 14. But today, 49 yards, rushing, -3 receiving, 2 catches. So that's what, 6.6 fantasy points for Ken Walker. Frustrating. So, I've kind of had it. I don't know.
You're benching him?
No, I don't have I mean, the only guy in one league I have Walker, and I could bench him for Ramondre Stevens, and I'm not doing that. But I don't have as much faith in him. He's one of those players where it's like, yeah, I'm going to keep starting him, but I'm not doing it as enthusiastically anymore.
The allure has definitely disappeared. It seemed as if he was going to be more involved in the passing game. That's now gone. The short yardage stuff to Zach Charbonnet is really frustrating, especially after some of those calls where he was not necessarily Charbonnet's fault, but just the play design was terrible. It's their whole offense has just been weird.
Yeah. I did. So there's a comment here. They keep using Charbonnet so much on the goal line. It's not really true. Ken Walker was in there. If we're going to specifically talk about goal line carries, Ken Walker was in there more than Charbonnet. I think Charbonnet had a 7 or 8 yard touchdown run. I watched this whole game basically, and I really didn't think it was Walker's fault for what it's worth. He just didn't have a lot of chances. He got better in the second half, but they were all over him. The Jets D-line really crushed the run game. That's just one man's opinion, but it's more than just one game. He just has, since that Detroit game, he had his toughest matchup of the year. He's come back from injury and he ran all over Detroit. Since then, he just hasn't run the ball well. And I don't really know what to say at this point, but I'm kind of like what Heath said. I'm probably going to keep starting him. All right. From Sean Millerick, buy or sell, Isaiah Pacheco is a must start in 12-team leagues rest of season.
Rest of season, sell. Next week, buy.
Chargers next week.
Well, it's again 6 teams on a bye. Like it's.
So compare him to Ken Walker. How do you feel about Pacheco?
Oh, I'd rather start Walker right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we need to see more from Pacheco. Buy or sell from Will. You can trust Tony Pollard coming off a horrible game. He had 4 catches, but a bad game at Washington. You can trust Tony Pollard rest of season as a starting running back.
So I'd
put
put him
Jacksonville
between
twice in the next 4 weeks. Yes.
I'd put him between Walker and Pacheco.
I would put him ahead of both, just with the schedule that's coming up for them.
Let's do the rest of the news and notes, although I think I pretty much got all the news and notes, but I'll go through it. Baker Mayfield left with an injury. Then he came right back. Then he threw an interception almost immediately. So that wasn't pretty. Noah Brown, Commanders wide receiver, left with a rib injury. They have a bye. Calvin Austin left with a concussion. Steelers receiver. Dallas Goedert and Taysom Hill, I already mentioned. They're hurt. The Jets. So left tackle Tyron Smith is almost certainly out for the year on IR. Might be the end of his career. And their right tackle, Morgan Moses, left with a shoulder injury today. Dallas left tackle Tyler Guyton has a high ankle sprain. See if he can play through it. I think he has been playing through it. They have the Bengals in week 14. Giants defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence is out for the season. There were really a lot of defensive injuries. If I could just... Detroit got really beat up on the defensive line. And they've been able to sort of power through it all year, but we'll see. I don't know who's coming back for Green. They have a short week. I mean, it's a full week for them, but they play Thursday against Green Bay. Can't wait for that one. Sauce Gardner left in the fourth quarter. Jacksonville lost 2 members of their secondary, Darnell Savage and Tyson Campbell. Houston safety Jimmy Ward was evaluated for concussion. Tampa Bay is just the best matchup. And safety Mike Edwards left with a hamstring injury. We'll see if Aiden O'Connell can get it done again next week against Tampa Bay. And Reed Blankenship for the Eagles, very good safety for them. He left with a concussion. I can't believe that their defense banged up. They went in and held. How much did the Ravens score? 19 points. Let me check on that.
They had the late touchdown. I think got a little more. Maybe
24-19, the final score. Unreal. What a performance.
Who's got a better matchup, Cooper Rush or Aiden O'Connell?
Cooper Rush has who?
The Bengals.
The Bengals, and Aiden O'Connell has the Bucks. Probably.
Who do you trust more with 6 teams on a bye? That's a pretty interesting one for people next week.
Aiden O'Connell.
Relative to this game, I was just wondering, Adam, who is your current MVP favorite? Because it can't be Lamar anymore, right?
No, Lamar's out.
What do you mean Lamar is out? His body of work is still amazing.
The MVP with 5 losses.
I mean, I don't believe in that personally.
Everybody who votes believes in that. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Okay, hey, I'm not saying. I'm just saying who my MVP is.
Well,
I don't.
You do remember? I just want to remind you they have an Offensive Player of the Year award for the best offensive player stats. If you want to vote for somebody for that,
I don't believe that Lamar Jackson is the reason they've lost 5 games. And I also this reminds me. I think we're stuck in the Stone Age a little bit here. This reminds me of when voters for the Cy Young Award used to care about wins. Now they don't care about wins at all or barely. It's not like the Ravens are having a bad season. Come on now. But it's a tough case to make, I admit. All right.
It's a three-man race, depending on what happens tonight, between Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, and Jared Goff.
You better say Lamar Jackson. Like, Lamar Jackson is in the race. He's one great game away.
He is one of 5 contenders if you want to, extend it. He's one of 4 if you want to keep it at that number. But you can't lose 5 games, not win your division, and be the MVP.
I think he can, but okay. I mean, I understand.
I mean, if Jalen Hurts has got to be in the conversation.
Sure, he's having a good year too, but not having a Lamar Jackson year. You know what? They should just use fantasy points. It really is a great stat, isn't it? Who wins the MVP without fantasy points?
To me, to Heath's point, if you're not going to give it to a running back, Saquon's going to be the offensive player of the year. So it's probably Josh Allen or Jared Goff, depending on how these guys go. Maybe still Mahomes is in it also.
Come on.
They said on the broadcast, Philadelphia has never had an MVP.
I heard that. That was nuts. All right, let's get to our winners and losers here. Jamey's winners. Brian Robinson Jr. started in only 39% of leagues. I benched him. And he went for 16 carries, 103 yards and a touchdown and 1 catch. And I don't know if he played at all in the fourth quarter. Chris Rodriguez got pretty much every carry in the fourth quarter. So this was a blowout win. And Brian Robinson Jr. was a big winner. Ladd McConkey and Russell Wilson. But let's start with Brian Robinson Jr., Jamey.
So I didn't think he was going to play well, not 100%. This Titans run defense prior to this week had been just lights out against 3 amazing running backs in J.K. Dobbins, Aaron Jones, and Joe Mixon in back-to-back weeks. And look, Robinson was fantastic. As soon as he broke that long run, I was like, oh, here we go. Long day for him. So for anybody that sat him, I felt awful for suggesting it. But the positive is, like, coming off the bye week, you're going to get 3 more games of no Austin Eckler. And if they're chasing points, I still think he's their best pass-catching running back too. So you go back to week 4, the Arizona game, when Eckler missed. He had 3 catches in that game and had 20 PPR points. I think 3 catches is probably realistic on a week-to-week basis. That was the last time he had more than 1 catch, was that week 4 game. So not only was it a winner for what he did today, moving forward, you have a potential stud.
Next up, Ladd McConkey. So we got to check the injury, obviously, but this guy is a huge playmaker. I think the stat of the game that I gave on Wednesday night was that he had the most explosive plays among wide receivers in the last however many weeks it was, and he had 2 more today, and he went for 117 yards on 12 targets on only 23 pass attempts. So Ladd McConkey, Jamey.
Yeah, fun little note, which I thought would help maybe 2 guys. Both he and Kamani Vidal from the Atlanta area, or Georgia, from the state of Georgia. McConkey played at Georgia. I like those little tie-ins. And I asked our 2 NFL players on our show today about, when you play in your hometown, how much does that excite you guys? And Logan Ryan and Darius Butler both said, oh, yeah, get a little bit more excited. Worked out for one, not so much for the other. But McConkey's a stud. I mean, he's just, emerging as the guy for Justin Herbert. I'm very curious. I did see somebody somewhere suggest maybe T. Higgins to the Chargers in the offseason as a potential landing spot for him. That'd be interesting because, getting another piece to that offense would be fun. But Ladd McConkey has stepped into, not the same player, but that Keenan Allen role, that go-to guy for Justin Herbert. And it's just been fun to watch. He's been such a standout rookie, and, sky's the limit for him moving forward.
And how much do you trust Russell Wilson, your third winner, who scored 32.9 fantasy points at Cincinnati? I believe he's the number 2 quarterback this week behind Jaden Daniels, getting Cleveland, then at Philadelphia, then at Baltimore.
So we talked about this on Tuesday with the waiver wire stuff. Like, I thought he had a chance to play well just because Cincinnati's so bad. This far exceeded my expectations. He had the pick 6, which, I don't know if you want to give him, blame him for that. Didn't seem like it was fault. But just a great performance. And I think the one thing that was interesting, and I hope Calvin Austin's healthy, he was using the middle of the field. He had, the throw to Austin. He had a throw to Freiermuth. He had a throw to Mike Williams, which is not something we see from him. And obviously George Pickens, I like that Mike Tomlin called him out and said he's got to play, smarter and not be such a knucklehead with the personal foul penalty or the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. But, if he can develop some other weapons, I think he'll play better against Cleveland, just because hopefully weather will be better. But, Russ, this was a big step forward for him. And if he can play like this and the defense continues to play well, I don't really look at this as a poor defensive performance because obviously Cincinnati's offense is so good. But you know what the defense is capable of. Like, they're going to be a legitimate contender. But for fantasy, next week, I don't mind Russ as a top 12 quarterback. Against Philadelphia, no chance.
Heath, your winners are Marvin Harrison Jr., who was started in 69% of leagues and had 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown at Minnesota on 12 targets. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Bucky Irving. And let me ask you this, actually. Let's just throw Marvin Harrison Jr. in this conversation. Let's say Lab McConkey's fine and the injury's not serious and he's playing next week. Who is the number one wide receiver for you, rookie wide receiver for you rest of season?
And it's probably still Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
But Marvin Harrison Jr. would probably be second for me. Like I said, the next week's matchup is probably the worst that he has all season long. And it's the week when 6 teams are on a bye. But then you get the Patriots, you get the Panthers, and I'm not too scared of the Rams. If they actually finally, for some reason, start throwing him the ball double-digit times per game, he might, in the fantasy playoffs, justify the ADP. Now, I'm not sure how many people drafted him in round 2 and they're going to make the fantasy playoffs. But he might be that guy as a borderline number 1 wide receiver in the last 3 weeks of the fantasy season.
Would you take Brian Thomas ahead of any of those 2 guys if you knew Ben Johnson is the coach?
Next year, you mean?
Yeah.
Because I was answering that question rest of season. That's what you wanted there, Adam.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So for
I thought you said next year. I'm sorry.
No, I meant rest of season.
I probably would take Thomas ahead of McConkey. I think I'd probably go Neighbors, Harrison, McConkey.
Oh no, Neighbors, Harrison, Thomas, McConkey.
Right.
Yeah.
For next year.
All right, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't know if we can ignore it anymore. He's at 7 of his last 8 games with a touchdown now, and as I mentioned on the Starter Sit episode, he leads the team by a mile in red zone and end zone targets. He had 1 more red zone and 2 more end zone targets today. So is this legit? Is he a starter now? 54% rostered, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
So I think he's probably a starter for sure in 3 wide receiver leagues. With a matchup against Jacksonville and 6 teams on a bye. I'm going to say that 7,000 times. There should be some sort of bell that rings whenever we say it this week. But this was a different thing. I was trying to see. I know it's a season high of 8 targets and looks like tied a career high of 8 targets. And some of what he's done in an unsustainable way. And he did have 2 catches in each of the 2 games before this. But he just keeps turning in starter-worthy production. And then he saw the uptick in volume. And then we get all the teams going on bye. And so I think you just view him as a number 3 wide receiver.
There we go. I found a bell. Okay. Number 3, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Bucky Irving was your other winner. He is crushing it. So let's go to the losers now. Heath, your first loser is Chuba Hubbard, who was 82% started. He had 12 carries for 43 yards and a fumble that lost them the game, unfortunately. Jonathan Brooks had 6 carries for 18 yards and he had 3 catches. Chuba did not have a catch in the game. I do think he dominated snaps, but it was not a good week for him. What are you thinking here?
So I did send this in before he tracied. But that's what we're going to call an overtime fumble to lose your team the game from now on, I think. I did not like the fact that it was almost like series that they were splitting early in the year or early in the game. And Brooks, as you said, had all the running back targets. It's a really weird situation because it's a team that's not really competing for anything this year. And they've got this rookie running back that's now played 2 games in the NFL. And we kind of thought, well, they were not going to overuse him because he's going to be the lead back next year. But then they signed Chuba to the contract extension. And so I do wonder if they just want to get Jonathan Brooks a few more looks later in the season. I'm not sure after we get through the buys that Chuba Hubbard's going to be a must-start running back. Might be a low-end number 2.
Even next week, it's going to be tough against Philly.
You have to let me know in the chat if it's getting annoying or if it's funny.
Yeah, do you have like a dinner bell? Dinner bell.
That's the only bell I have.
Okay.
I could do like a Heath groan or something, but
no.
All right. Aaron Jones was a loser for you. He had 5 carries in this game, but he did catch a touchdown late. Let's see. So how many points for him today? 20. He didn't get to 13, did he?
I don't think he got to double digits.
All right. So he has now scored 20. He's now scored 12.2 or fewer PPR fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. That's Aaron Jones.
He may have just barely gotten to double digits with that touchdown catch, but he lost another fumble. 3rd game in a row, I believe he's lost a fumble. He actually fumbled twice in this game. And I think it was easy to look at last week, and this is what I struggled with during the projections process, just kind of a peek behind the curtain. The splitting with Cam Akers the prior 2 weeks, you could have said, well, he wasn't healthy, and he got healthy, and they gave him all the work. So they'll give him all the work again this week, and they didn't really, and he wasn't particularly good either. So I think he's a low-end number 2 running back.
Okay, and Tank Dell. You know what? Tank done. I'm done.
I can't make any argument against it. 1 catch, 4 targets. In the best of matchups, I wouldn't be upset with somebody for dropping him in a redraft league.
He's on a bye next week. Okay, and then Jamey's losers are Kyler Murray, Tony Pollard, and Garrett Wilson. Start with Kyler here, 17.2 fantasy points. But on 45 pass attempts, it's kind of surprising that he didn't do better. Okay, what do you think about him? Is he a top 12 guy for you rest of season?
He will be after next week. He's just, the matchup against Seattle, I don't think is favorable based on what Seattle's done lately. I do think it'll help being at home. He's not been good on the road this year at all. This is now, I think, 4 or 5 games where he's been under 15 fantasy points on the road. So just not playing well away from home. It was back-to-back road games too. So we'll see. He just did not play well against Seattle 2 weeks ago. But I do think after that, the schedule is much more favorable. I like the fact that they featured Marvin Harrison more. I think that'll help him. What he's still capable of when he uses his legs. So we'll see coming out of next week, but probably hard to sit him with so many teams off next week.
What concerns you about Tony Pollard? Why is he a loser?
Just Tyjae Spears back. This is one good game in his last 4 with Pollard playing without Spears last week. And Spears played the previous 2 games, not in full games. Had the concussion. But we just have maybe a little bit of a concern. Again, the schedule's great, so I wouldn't consider sitting him against Jacksonville coming up in week 14. But just disappointing to see him not take advantage of this matchup, which a lot of teams had run on Washington recently.
All right, and Garrett Wilson's your last one, but Pollard, it's 3 kind of stinkers in his last 4 games. All right, so Garrett Wilson, 75% started, got 10 targets, 5 catches for 41 yards. Disappointing. He was wide open in the end zone, Aaron Rodgers. That play changed the whole game. It may have been 14-0 at that point, or 10-0, whatever it was. They were playing really well. Garrett Wilson puts a great move on, gets wide open in the end zone. Rodgers overthrows him by about a yard. I think the next play was a pick 6. And it just
Leonard Williams.
Yeah, by a defensive tackle.
They were going in to make it 28-7.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Sorry, I forgot the score, but they were up and they were cruising, and everything changed on that play. So anyway, this is very concerning for Garrett Wilson. This is 3 straight games with single-digit PPR fantasy points.
I think we'll get going against Miami next week. I don't really worry about that secondary so much being shut down, where he can't do anything, but. Again, 6 teams on a bye, you're going to start him. After that, if he has a disappointing game again, it's going to be tough to say must-start receiver.
And the Dolphins actually had 2 injuries in their secondary on Thursday. So we'll see. They could be pretty depleted. All right, I don't really have anything to report in terms of goal line work. I just wanted to see who it was for the Buccaneers. It was both Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, but it was not Sean Tucker this week. Some almost touchdowns. I mentioned Garrett Wilson. Alvin Kamara had a touchdown catch called back. Geno Smith missed Noah Fant on what would have been a 1-yard touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson had a 2-yard rushing touchdown called back on a hold. Mac Jones missed Brian Thomas. He was wide open for what would have been a long touchdown. Then he had a 56-yard catch right after that, but not the touchdown. Let's see. Adam Thielen. What a game for Adam Thielen. We got to talk about him. He could be very popular on the waiver wire, and he should have had another touchdown. I don't understand how they didn't call that a touchdown. It was
because when he came to the ground, the ball was not controlled.
You saw a replay of that?
I mean, that's what it looked like to me.
Okay, I thought
when his elbow hit, it was still moving.
I thought it looked good to me, but fair enough. We'll call it a true almost touchdown then. Puka Nacua had an almost touchdown, and Kendrick Bourne had a touchdown catch called back. On the next play, Antonio Gibson scored a rushing touchdown. Let's get to the games. We'll do that after this break on Fantasy Football Today.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Should we do the top 5 at each position, or should we do the games? What do you guys decide?
Games.
Okay, great. Let's go to Friday, shall we? Kansas City 19, Las Vegas 17. We discussed Isaiah Pacheco. How about DeAndre Hopkins, though? Still not playing a ton of snaps, but 4 catches for 90 yards on 9 targets. And that's coming off a game where he scored a touchdown at Carolina. Who's confident in DeAndre Hopkins? Let's just go week by week this upcoming week against the Chargers, and not just because there are 6 teams on bye.
It's the story of the week. It's the story of the week. You should do this song. He's a number 3 wide receiver this week, and probably a flex at best rest of the season.
I mean, taking on a Raiders team that was down 2 corners, that certainly helped. Chargers obviously have a much tougher defense. So I think Heath said it best. 6 teams on a bye, he's number 3 receiver. Everybody's healthy, active, week 15. If he doesn't have a good game, you're probably not confident in him.
By the way, if you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app. You sign up using the bonus code FANTASY, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Kind of interested to see where the Raiders backfield goes from here. I mean, wouldn't it be nice just to see what Sincere McCormick could do? He's been pretty good in 2 games against 2 great run defenses. He has 17 carries for 97 yards against Denver and Kansas City. I don't know. Jamey, you think you're going to talk about him in the waiver wire column or write about him?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the fact that Madison was limited in practice last week, though, is probably not an encouraging sign unless they're going to commit to him even when Madison is back. But then who knows when Zamir White is back. Look, this team is obviously not very stable in terms of, aside from Bowers and Myers at this point, so I think you just look at the backfield as saying, if the guys are healthy, can you trust anyone?
I think there was a quote basically saying we're going to keep using him or something like that. Not specifically talking about Madison. I will say in the Scott Fish Bowl, looks like I'm moving on to the next round.
Nice.
But I think my top 2 running back options for next week are Jaleel McLaughlin and Roschon Johnson.
Wow.
So I might take a flyer on Sincere McCormick.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and let's go to Minnesota 23, Arizona 22. It must be so fun. I said this to Schaefer. It must be so fun to be a Vikings fan this year. It's incredible. Yeah. Another 1-score win.
It's so fun when the Vikings do it. It's like the sky is falling when the Chiefs do it.
Yeah. All right. So we talked Kyler, James Conner. It was a tough run defense, but he got 20 touches. So hopefully he can turn things around. Trey McBride, 2 straight games with 12 catches. We talked about Aaron Jones. All right, how about let's react to this Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson with a nice game here, Heath. He had 7 catches for 99 yards. Jordan Addison, 4 for 54. TJ Hawkinson was bad, and they keep throwing touchdowns to other tight ends. But I guess the passing game. Just talk about the passing game for Minnesota.
Only 51 offensive plays in this game for the Vikings. And so all the numbers are kind of a little bit lower than you would like to have. It was good to see Addison bounce back. Hawkinson's just right in that tight end 12 discussion where he could have, He might have a game where we finish the top 5. He might. What did I do?
I'm just laughing at like this defensive lineman just belly flopping in the snow. Sorry, I tried to keep myself, but it was so goofy.
You had the face like I said something dumb, which I might have also. But no, I'm not going to make too much out of the bad day for Hawkinson. I just think he's at that range of tight end where there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and you hope you can do better, but you probably can't.
It was a very weird game. They seemed to not know what to do with the Cardinals blitz. Sam Darnold at times was, foot in the ground, and there were 3 guys in his face. And for him to rally and get 2 touchdowns, I thought was pretty impressive for his fantasy line. And he's just at this point right now where, he's just at this point now where you're just starting him. I can't see anything to change that until he has like a really bad game, and then maybe another 2 in a row. But against Atlanta next week, must start quarterback.
And let me tell you this about Sam Darnold. This is one of my favorite little notes here. He has now scored the 2nd most fantasy points by any quarterback against the Titans, the most fantasy points by any quarterback against the Bears, and the most fantasy points by any quarterback in the last 6 games against Arizona. And the Cardinals defense has really been pretty good. And it's a lot of times it's just, how did he do it? How did he pull it off? Late game heroics or something. And he's bounced back from 2 terrible games. He had a terrible game against the Jets, and he bounced back from that. He had a terrible game against the Jaguars, and he's bounced back from that. All right.
Think about the 2 teams you just said that he's had terrible games against. Like, that's the crazy part. Like, those 2 teams are so bad.
And they won. Houston 23, Jacksonville 20. Disappointing that CJ Stroud only scored 16.4 fantasy points. I mean, the Texans, you pretty much know what to do with. It's like Mixon, yes, although we got these tough matchups coming up, but and Nico, yes. So what do we think about ETN and Tank Bigsby?
Give Heath credit. He said Stroud was going to be a bust this year, and he has been.
Okay, yeah. Nice work. Yeah.
Good job, Heath.
Yeah, all right, Heath.
I wish he had. I would take that loss if we could just have like half of the incompletions to Tank Dell be completions, and he could have all those fantasy points.
Yeah.
Been really sad season for Tank Dell.
Sad season for Travis Etienne as well. Do you guys see yourself starting Etienne or Bigsby at any point going forward?
No. Even against Tennessee, no.
Okay. And then Evan Ingram is like the least sexy double-digit PPR fantasy point every week guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all. PPR is yeah.
Like 2 or 3 different dynasty leagues in the past month, I've dropped Parker Washington. So I would really like it if you guys could tell me that this was just like a 1-week aberration and it doesn't mean anything.
It was a great matchup. And on top of it being a great matchup, it was we said this, with going into the bye week. I had him listed as a waiver wire guy 2 weeks ago, and then coming off their bye week. Gabe Davis is out, Christian Kirk is out. We thought Lawrence coming back it would help, and it was Mac Jones today. So there's going to be target opportunities there. They're going to be chasing points most weeks. Like, I don't think you're going to feel comfortable starting Parker Washington, but next week, 6 teams on a bye, 3 receiver league, he might be in rotation. I picked him up in 1 league, dropped him. I appreciate it.
I'm sad that the bell got annoying because it would be like if it were fun, it would be a lot of bells.
If you could have got a dinner bell, it would have been much better. I'm sad because of the Bills running backs.
All right, Washington 42, Tennessee 19. Washington had the ball for more than 40 minutes in this game. Is it even worth talking about Will Levis? I mean, it's over 20 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. He gets Jacksonville next week. He gets Jacksonville twice. He's at Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville. It's pretty. We talked about this weeks ago for Levis, but he's kind of delivering right now. But you know what? I understand in a 1 QB league, it's tough to go to Will Levis. So let's
again, 6 teams on a bye. Like, you may need to start him.
Let's talk about Calvin Ridley here. You know what his stupid ADOT was today? It was stupid 19.7 yards. I can't take this anymore. 2 catches for 45 yards on 7 targets.
Revenge game against Jacksonville next week. Must start.
And they give up a ton of big plays. Okay, fine. Jaden Daniels, hooray. McLaurin.
Hooray.
Are we confident in him? I know he had 6 or fewer targets in 4 straight games before this game. He had 8 targets in this one. We kind of
did he go 6-2, 6-3, 8-2? 4?
Well, they have a bye next week, so 0.
0.
Yeah. All right, but we're back.
Must-start receiver rest away.
Is Zach Ertz a must-start tight end?
Yes. I said this on Friday's show. If you took away his name and you just listed the stats of what he's done recently, there's no way you wouldn't be starting him.
Recently, yeah, but for the season going into this week, he was not a top 12 tight end, which surprised me.
His last month has just been impressive.
It's been really great. Been on 3 touchdowns in a row, and he did have 6 catches in a couple games. He doesn't have 50 yards in a game in his last 5. Like, it's just very Zach Ertz.
But the targets were there, the receptions there. I mean, look, for that position, what more do you want? Especially with the quarterback that he's tied to.
They're going to do a 3-legged race. They're tied to each. Yeah, bad joke. Sorry. All right. Los Angeles 17, Atlanta 13. Kirk Cousins, 4 interceptions. Tough day for him.
Is he going to get benched?
Not according to his head coach. His head coach said we're sticking by him. He's gotten us this far, basically. He's our guy.
He hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 games.
Are they in first place?
I believe they are now tied with the Bucks, who have the Falcons still have head-to-head.
Yeah, they are in first place. Bucks have
They're not winning that division.
The easiest schedule, I think, in the NFL remaining.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's winning the division.
One of them. Tampa Bay, very inspiring performance today.
Well, one team won and one team lost. So,
all right, what do you think? Who do you think is going to end up being the best running back rest of season for the Chargers?
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
Okay, because I'm definitely going to pick up Kamani Vidal if he's available.
Yeah.
I just don't have faith in Gus.
I don't think he is available. I'm pretty sure on Friday, Jamey picked him up in every league you were in.
Yeah,
I tried.
He's 28% rostered though, so he's available.
I had one of my father's son leagues where my 6-year-old, so I do the managing of the team for him. One of the other dads said, Simon is my 6-year-old. He goes, Simon's a big Kamani Vidal fan, huh?
Yeah, you know it.
And I said, I hope he is.
He's got his poster and everything. The kids love Kamani Vidal. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much about the Chargers passing game. They only threw 23 passes. I think 24. I think they had a fake punt or something like that. And they only had the ball for 24 minutes and 5 seconds. And we'll see what happens with McConkey. That would obviously change things. On the other side of the ball, what do you make of this bad game from Darnell Mooney? 3 catches for 20 yards on 6 targets.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah,
shake it off.
Shake it off.
I'm not going to shake it off for Kyle Pitts, though.
No, man. What was the combined catches today for the 2 tight ends in this game?
0.
Yep.
on a combined 3 targets.
Yeah, it's tough with Kyle Pitts.
Hey, Charlie Warner caught a pass.
Heath, have you ever seen Nick something, your company's computer guy, the Jimmy Fallon skit on SNL?
No.
Okay, well, in our Superflex league that we share, I dropped Kyle Pitts for Zach Ertz. You're welcome. Okay.
What did you think of my lineup change on Thanksgiving without telling you?
What'd you do?
I benched Aaron Rodgers for Tua.
I benched Aaron Rodgers for Tua.
You did not. I took him out of the starting line. Aaron Rodgers in the starting lineup on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Maybe you meant to and just forgot.
I checked the lineup.
I went and changed the lineup and put Tua in for Aaron Rodgers. And didn't tell you.
I was going to do that because I was using your rankings.
Yeah, you were going to.
I was. I swear. I swear. All right. Let's go to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
I you took credit for it, knowing that Heath did it. I did it.
I really thought I did.
Amazing.
I thought I did it.
That is amazing.
Well, I meant to. I was, I wanted him in. All right. Anyway, Pittsburgh 44, Cincinnati 38. This was a wild game.
Game of the week.
Yeah. And 2 weeks in a row without a game of the week, by the way. We got to rectify that.
I did it.
What'd you do?
I did Cardinals-Vikings.
Oh, okay. But how did you do it?
I just said it's a game of the week. I don't have the song.
He got him really good. Like Dave started talking, and then Jamey said it, and Dave was all flustered.
Did you do it? You really did it in the middle of a sentence?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, let's go. What do you think about Najee Harris right now?
Very weak, but I did it.
No, it sounds great. What do you think about Najee Harris at this big game? Jamey mentioned that Logan Wilson didn't play for Cincinnati. Sheldon Rankins also didn't play, so it was a much better matchup. But great game for him and 6 catches for Najee.
This might prove wrong, but if I somehow can still make trades in my league, I would like to turn Najee Harris into a running back I might be able to start in the fantasy playoffs. He gets one more good game against Cleveland, and then it's at Philadelphia, at Baltimore against the Chiefs.
Yeah. So would you rather have Tony Pollard than Najee Harris?
I think I would.
I would. With the schedules coming up, yeah.
What about Tyrone Tracy?
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys aren't concerned that they split carries with Singletary? He only had 8 carries or something, right? Tracy?
We're gonna what happened the game before with Najee, where he got out carried by Jalen Warren. There's
with an injury. Yeah, I thought he lived with an injury in that game, but I could be wrong.
Well, he also got what looked like banged up in this game too. I don't know what happened to him on that run. That was weird.
I think he looked like he just ran out of gas. But yeah, I saw that too. Okay, all right. George Pickens is good. Pat Freiermuth. Do we just look at this Freiermuth game 6 for 68 and a touchdown as a matchup thing? Because the Bengals are the new Chiefs, Jamey.
Bengals are the new Chiefs, and again, Logan Wilson, and we'll see if he plays. What that means for Jake Ferguson or Luke Schoonmaker next week as the Bengals take on the Cowboys. But I think in terms of Freiermuth, he had 4 for 49, if I'm not mistaken, against the Browns in the first meeting, and so
59,
459. So with the 6 teams on a bye, he's in the starting mix, but not sustainable. I do think if Calvin Austin's out, that helps because they'll give him a few more targets, but it is still Arthur Smith, as we've seen Washington getting a few more targets, as the season's gone on. So it's not trustworthy, but under the circumstances for the fantasy managers that are chasing tight ends on a bye and may have just lost Taysom Hill, he might not be a bad fallback option.
Got a question in the chat. Rico Dowdle or Najee Harris rest of season? Rico has the Bengals, Panthers, Bucks, and Eagles. Pretty good sketch there. Adam or Heath rest of season? Ooh, Jamey, what do you got? Oh, I love that. It's a tie. Indianapolis 25, New England 24.
But it would be Heath because he's my son's basketball coach.
I don't blame you.
It's a much longer season left.
Richardson scored 25.2 fantasy points. A lot of it came on the last drive. He completed 12 of 24 passes for 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This is vintage Anthony Richardson. How are we feeling about him going forward? He does have a bye, then Denver, Tennessee, and the Giants in the fantasy playoffs.
Don't like the Denver game, but I like the other 2. And especially if they're still playing for something, which right now they're still in the playoff hunt. So, look, Josh Downs coming back would be huge. He's been a big part of the passing success for Richardson. If he ever throws a pass to Kyle Granson again, they should never play Kyle Granson again. He just drops everything. So, look, he did what he had to do. The rushing production is what you're hoping for consistently.
Yeah. And speaking of rushing production, I'm going, like we talked about Ken Walker and DK Metcalf, going to keep starting them. I'm going to keep starting Jonathan Taylor, I guess, but I'm nervous about it. Is anybody else nervous? He caught a touchdown today.
I'm nervous what just happened in this game.
Yeah, I know. Let's not talk about it. But Taylor with 1 catch. I mean, he basically gets 1 catch per game. He's got 6 catches in 7 games with Anthony Richardson. And he's got Denver and Tennessee. I know Tennessee just got run all over, but those are 2 really good run defenses in the fantasy playoffs. All right. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess.
You're talking about a lot of guys who I just like. It doesn't feel very good right now, but we're all going to keep starting them.
Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson started in 68% of leagues, had a decent game. I think he scored 12 fantasy points right around there. He had a touchdown called back. This was his best rushing, just in terms of yards per carry, in a long time. So that was encouraging to see. And that's it. And then Hunter Henry, I wish they would stop throwing a hooper. 4 targets a game, 4 games in a row. All right, Seattle and the Jets. Seattle 26, Jets 21. Heath, what are your thoughts on the New York Jets?
No, the bet on Devontae Adams targets paid off this week.
Yeah.
And the concern that he was going to ruin Garrett Wilson that looked silly for a while after he got there kind of feels like it's happened. And I hate it. And Breece Hall had 1 target and didn't catch it. And Isaiah Davis had 3 targets and Braylon Allen had 2. And so I hate that also. And I don't like Aaron Rodgers very much. So that might like the short version, and now you got the long version of how I feel about the Jets.
I thought I tweeted it. I said Aaron Rodgers looks really good.
Isaiah Davis?
What?
You said Isaiah Rodgers.
I said Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, I said
Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
Blurred it. Aaron Rodgers looks really good, and he did. And then he looked horrible as soon as I tweeted that. But he actually looked a lot more mobile than he had at any point that I've seen all year.
Oh, I saw when he ran all the way to the left sideline, then all the way to the right sideline, and then threw an incompletion, which is more entertaining than just dropping back 3 steps and throwing an incompletion.
Yeah, but he also had his highest deep ball percentage of the year.
That worked.
It didn't work. But it was
he averaged 4.7 yards per attempt and completed 21 of 39 passes.
No, he struggled, but he at least was willing to throw the ball downfield. He looked better because he's been so bad that all right, you know what?
I'm
gonna
done.
stop. No, he was terrible. He was so inaccurate. But it was okay. On the other side of the ball, I think we know we've talked enough about all these guys. Rams 21, New Orleans 14 as we get to the late window here. Stafford found a way to score 19.6 fantasy points. Kyron's another guy that barely catches the ball. Oh, it's so frustrating. Anything to worry about here with Cooper Kupp? 3 catches for 17 yards on 6 targets.
I mean, not to worry about, but, again, when you're talking about the high-end guys, does he belong there anymore? I would still say he's on the cusp. But, you got the late touchdown last week. Not that he had a bad game last week, but that was, sort of put him over the top. And then you see something like this. Like, there's still some flaws, I think, with him overall. Okay.
And anything else? Anything else to say? By the way, he had 15 or more points in 5 straight games going into this one, and they only threw 24 times. Anything else in this game? Give me the impact of the Taysom Hill injury on the rest of the Saints if it's a long-term injury.
Kamara scores more touchdowns.
Yeah, and your, MVS is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine light.
Yep.
He has 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He had 3 touchdowns in 2 seasons with the Chiefs.
Tampa Bay 26, Carolina 23, an overtime thriller. So we've discussed the Bucs. Let's talk about Bryce Young and the passing game for the Carolina Panthers here. Anybody buying it? Anybody feeling it?
I think the Panthers are. It's going to be an interesting offseason for them. Do they decide to, draft a quarterback depending on where they end up in the draft? But he's looked much better. The offensive line is definitely improved for the Panthers. You're seeing what the receiving core healthy looks like for them now, with what Thielen has done. And you said it earlier in the show, he is absolutely a must-add receiver. It's a terrible matchup against Philadelphia, but you still want to pick him up based on the way he looked today and knowing what that rapport is there moving forward. But yeah, look, it's a 2 QB league option, super flex league option. He's performed well, and give him credit. Rushing touchdown, the throw to Thielen was great. Probably should have won this game, based on winning, the touchdown late in the 4th quarter, and then Chuba's fumble, unfortunately. So
full PPR.
This is a very encouraging month for Bryce Young in his future.
Are we flexing Thielen or Chuba next week?
Against Philly, I'd rather go with Thielen.
I think he might be higher.
Yeah, there are 6 teams on a bye next week, so you might actually have.
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Tommy, hey, I don't know if I actually said this, but I thought it a couple times. Tommy Tremble, 12.7 fantasy points without Jatavian Sanders. He might not be a bad streamer.
Or Jatavian Sanders, if he comes back. Right?
Yeah. I know Philly just gave up some big performances to both tight ends for Baltimore, but I don't know. Just trusting any of the Panthers against Philly is going to be tough.
Yeah. Heath is pumped. Heath needed that James Cook touchdown. James Cook is good. Okay, Philadelphia 24, Baltimore 19. This is our last game. Baltimore dominated time of possession, but they didn't do much with it. And, so how are we feeling about the Ravens? Okay, I can't even manufacture a question on this one. How are you feeling about Zay Flowers?
I mean, this was a good bounce back game for him after a couple of, down games by comparison. Low end number 2 receiver, I think, rest of season. Must start guy in 3 receiver leagues. Just depends on what your team looks like. But look, he's still going to be the go-to option in this passing game. And so Bateman now injured. I think that helps him if he's going to be out for a certain amount of games. But they're on a bye next week, so no need to stress about it.
If it wasn't for their bye next week, he might be a squeaky wheel candidate because he did not seem very happy on the sideline when he had 4 targets late in the game. Got a few late, but they didn't catch any of them.
Okay. Mark Andrews. If you think Mark Andrews is going to get 4 targets, he's going to be good. He got 7 in this game, and he was awesome. 6 for 67 and a touchdown.
Do you feel like you have to hold him?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
Do you?
I could see a situation where I definitely made the effort, like our 14-team podcast league, where I'm 11-2. Probably want to hold on to him. But if I was
this guy,
if I was like 7-6 and I was fighting for the playoffs and had a bunch of guys on bye, like you might have 4 or 5 guys on your bench on bye this week. I could also see dropping them.
Yeah, and honestly, you want pass attempts, right? And their next 2 games are the Giants and the Steelers, and the Steelers kind of have their number. So it's interesting. You know who I could see dropping? I don't know how you guys feel about it. Kate Otten.
Yeah.
He did get 7 targets today, but he's starting to stink again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I put everything I had into this week. Spent $15 on Fab to go get the Cowboys defense. Really played my heart out, even though I'm 4-8. And
yeah, you're a spoiler. I have McCaffrey in 3 leagues. Ugh. Oh boy. Okay. Well, that's it for me.
Who knows? Hopefully, it's not anything serious.
Yeah,
I know, but he's questionable with a knee. We'll talk to you tomorrow with Beyond the Box Score on Fantasy Football Today. Thanks so much for watching and listening, everybody. Talk to you soon.